What happens when a rising political star walks into what she thinks is a friendly interview, only to find herself ambushed by one of daytime television's most powerful figures? Today we're diving into the explosive confrontation that had viewers across America picking sides, as Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett found herself in the fight of her career against none other than Whoopi Goldberg on The View. This wasn't just another political disagreement. This was a clash that revealed the ugly truth about how some media elites really feel about young black women who dare to challenge the establishment. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below letting me know what you think about media bias in political interviews. Trust me, you're going to want to hear every single word of what went down. The studio lights were blazing hot that Tuesday morning as Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett settled into the familiar curved desk of The View. She had been invited to discuss her recent legislative victories and her growing influence in Congress. What she didn't know was that Whoopi Goldberg had already made up her mind about how this interview was going to go. The other hosts, Joy Behar, Sarah Haynes, Alyssa Farah Griffin, and Sunny Hostin, sat quietly as Whoopi took the lead, her expression already showing signs of the storm that was brewing. "So, Jasmine," Whoopi began, her voice carrying that tone that regular viewers know means trouble. "You've been making quite a name for yourself lately. Some people are saying you're getting a little too big for your britches. What do you say to that?" The question hit like a slap. Jasmine's eyebrows rose slightly, but she maintained her composure. "I'm sorry, Whoopi, but I'm not sure what you mean by that. I've been doing the job I was elected to do, fighting for my constituents and standing up for what's right." Whoopi leaned back in her chair, that familiar smirk spreading across her face. "Oh, you know exactly what I mean. All this grandstanding, all these viral moments. Some folks are wondering if you're more interested in being famous than being effective." The tension in the studio was immediately palpable. The other hosts exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the direction Whoopi was taking the interview. Jasmine, however, wasn't backing down. "With all due respect, Whoopi, I think you're confusing effectiveness with staying quiet. Just because I'm not willing to sit in the back and go along to get along doesn't mean I'm grandstanding. It means I'm doing my job." "Your job?" Whoopi's voice rose an octave. "Your job is to work with people, not against them. All this fighting and arguing, you think that's helping anybody?" Jasmine's jaw tightened. She could see where this was headed, and she wasn't going to let herself be steamrolled. "Fighting for civil rights isn't arguing, Whoopi. Standing up against voter suppression isn't being difficult, and I'm really surprised to hear these criticisms coming from you, of all people." "From me?" Whoopi's eyes flashed. "What's that supposed to mean?" It means you built your entire career on speaking truth to power, on being bold and unafraid. So why are you sitting here trying to shame me for doing the same thing?" The studio fell silent except for the hum of the cameras. Joy Behar looked like she wanted to jump in, but Whoopi's glare kept her frozen in place. Sarah Haynes was practically sinking into her chair, while Alyssa Farah Griffin and Sunny Hostin watched with wide eyes as their colleague went off script. Whoopi's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Little girl, don't you dare compare yourself to me. I've been fighting battles since before you were born. I know the difference between fighting smart and fighting stupid." "Little girl?" Jasmine's voice was deadly calm, but everyone could hear the steel underneath. "Did you just call a sitting member of Congress, little girl, on national television?" "I called you what you're acting like," Whoopi shot back. "Someone who thinks she knows everything but doesn't know anything about how this world really works." The other hosts were shifting uncomfortably in their seats. This had gone way beyond a typical View disagreement. This was personal, and it was getting ugly fast. Jasmine took a deep breath, clearly trying to maintain her professionalism. "Whoopi, I came here today thinking we were going to have a respectful conversation about the work I'm doing for the American people. Instead, you're attacking me personally and talking down to me like I'm some child who doesn't belong here. What is this really about?" "This is about respect," Whoopi snapped. "Respect for the process, respect for the people who came before you, respect for the institution. You can't just show up and think you're going to change everything overnight." And you can't just sit there and tear down every young woman who refuses to play by your outdated rules. Jasmine fired back. You're mad because I won't bow down and kiss the ring. You're upset because I'm not asking for permission to do my job. Whoopi's face was turning red now. You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you have all the answers. Well, let me tell you something, sweetheart. Washington is going to chew you up and spit you out if you keep acting like this. Acting like what? Like someone who actually believes in the things she campaigns on? Like someone who won't sell out her principles for a photo op? The insults were flying now, and the other hosts looked like they wanted to crawl under the table. This wasn't the kind of political discourse The View was known for. This was something else entirely. Something much more personal and much more vicious. Joy Behar finally found her voice, trying to step in as a mediator. Ladies, maybe we should take a step back here and... No. Whoopi cut her off sharply, her finger pointing directly at Jasmine. I'm tired of these young politicians thinking they can come in here and disrespect everything we've built. You want to talk about principles? I was fighting for civil rights when you were in diapers. Jasmine's composure was hanging by a thread, but her voice remained steady. And I respect that, Whoopi. I really do. But your past accomplishments don't give you the right to attack me for continuing that fight in my own way. Your own way? Whoopi laughed bitterly. Your way is all flash and no substance. All Twitter wars and sound bites. Where's the legislation? Where are the real results? That hit a nerve. Jasmine leaned forward, her eyes blazing. You want to talk about results? Let's talk about the voting rights bill I helped draft. Let's talk about the criminal justice reform amendments I've gotten passed. Let's talk about the fact that I've brought more federal funding to my district in 2 years than my predecessor brought in a decade. But I guess you didn't bother to do your research before ambushing me on your show. Ambushing you? Whoopi's voice was dripping with sarcasm. Honey, this is called journalism. This is called asking hard questions. Maybe you're just not used to people challenging you. Challenging me with facts is one thing. Challenging me with insults and condescension is something else entirely. And frankly, I expected better from someone with your reputation. Sunny Hostin cleared her throat, clearly wanting to redirect the conversation. Perhaps we could focus on some of the specific policies that Congresswoman Crockett has been working on. Oh, now you want to talk policy? Whoopi interrupted, still glaring at Jasmine. After she spent the last 5 minutes lecturing me about respect? Jasmine's patience finally snapped. I wasn't lecturing you about anything. I was defending myself from your unprofessional attack. And yes, let's talk policy, because that's what I'm actually here to discuss. Despite your best efforts to turn this into some kind of personal vendetta. Personal vendetta? Whoopi's voice rose again. Girl, you don't know me well enough for me to have a personal vendetta against you. What I have is a problem with politicians who think being loud makes them right. And what I have is a problem with so-called journalists who think being famous gives them the right to bully their guests. Jasmine shot back. You're supposed to be asking me questions, not attacking my character. The tension in the studio was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Alyssa Farah Griffin looked like she was holding her breath, while Sarah Haynes kept glancing toward the production booth, clearly hoping someone would step in to stop this runaway train. Whoopi slammed her hand on the desk. Don't you dare accuse me of bullying. I've been doing this job since before you were born. And I know the difference between tough questions and bullying. What you're doing right now, getting all defensive and playing victim, that's not leadership. That's weakness. Weakness? Jasmine's voice was incredulous. Refusing to let you disrespect me on national television is weakness? Standing up for myself is weakness? No, Whoopi. What's weak is using your platform to tear down other black women instead of lifting them up. The race card was now on the table, and everyone in the studio felt it. Whoopi's eyes narrowed to slits. Don't you dare try to make this about race. This is about competence. This is about maturity. This is about understanding your place. My place? Jasmine was on her feet now, her voice cutting through the studio like a blade. My place is in the United States Congress, representing the people who elected me. My place is fighting for justice and equality, And my place is definitely not sitting here quietly while you try to put me in some box that makes you comfortable. Sit down, Whoopi commanded, her voice cold as ice. Excuse me? You heard me. The audacity of the command left everyone stunned. Even Joy Behar's mouth fell open. Jasmine stood there for a moment, clearly processing what had just happened, before slowly sinking back into her chair. Now that's interesting, Jasmine said, her voice dangerously quiet. So when you can't win the argument on substance, you fall back on power plays. Very telling. I don't need power plays to win arguments with people like you, Whoopi retorted. All I need are facts. And the fact is, you've been in Congress for 2 years, and you think you're ready to change the world. The fact is, you spend more time on social media than you do in committee meetings. The fact is, Jasmine interrupted, you're making things up because you didn't bother to prepare for this interview. The fact is, I've had perfect attendance at every committee meeting I'm assigned to. The fact is, my social media presence is how I communicate directly with my constituents, something traditional politicians like yourself never figured out how to do effectively. Whoopi's face was now completely flushed. Traditional politicians like myself? Let me tell you what traditional politicians like myself did. We built the foundation that allows spoiled little princesses like you to waltz into Congress thinking you're going to be the next Obama. The Obama reference made Jasmine's eyes flash with anger. Spoiled little princess? Is that what you think of every young black woman who refuses to know her place? Is that what you think of every person who dares to dream bigger than the limitations you want to set for them? I think you're ungrateful, Whoopi said flatly. I think you don't appreciate the sacrifices that were made so you could sit where you're sitting. And I think you're exactly the kind of politician who gives the rest of us a bad name. The studio was dead silent except for the sound of Jasmine's controlled breathing. When she finally spoke, her voice was measured but filled with unmistakable fury. You know what, Whoopi? You're right about one thing. I am ungrateful. I'm ungrateful for gatekeepers who think they get to decide who belongs and who doesn't. I'm ungrateful for people who think fighting for change means asking permission from folks who are comfortable with the status quo. And I'm especially ungrateful for successful black women who spend their time tearing down the next generation instead of mentoring them. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Whoopi's face went through a range of emotions, from shock to rage to something that looked almost like hurt, before settling on cold fury. How dare you, Whoopi whispered, her voice trembling with anger. How dare you sit there and lecture me about lifting up black women? I've been lifting up black women since before you were even thought of. I've opened doors, I've broken barriers, I've fought battles you can't even imagine. And then you turn around and slam those same doors in the faces of the women trying to walk through them. Jasmine replied, her voice steady despite the fire in her eyes. You've become exactly what you used to fight against, a gatekeeper. Someone who thinks they get to decide who's worthy and who's not. Joy Behar made another desperate attempt to intervene. Ladies, I think we're getting a little heated here. Maybe we should. Maybe you should stay out of this, Joy. Whoopi snapped without taking her eyes off Jasmine. This little girl thinks she can come on my show and disrespect me. She thinks she can waltz in here with her fancy degrees and her social media following and tell me how to do my job. I never said anything about your job, Whoopi. But since you brought it up, maybe part of your job should be actually interviewing your guests instead of trying to humiliate them. Humiliate you? Whoopi's laugh was harsh and bitter. Honey, you're doing that all by yourself. Every word out of your mouth proves my point about young politicians today. No respect, no humility, no understanding of how things actually work. Jasmine shook her head slowly. You know what's sad about this? I actually admired you. I grew up watching you, thinking you were someone who stood for something, someone who used her platform to make a difference. But sitting here today, I realize you've become everything you used to stand against. Don't you dare try to psychoanalyze me? Whoopi seethed. You don't know anything about what I stand for or what I've sacrificed. You're just another entitled politician who thinks the world owes her something. Entitled? Jasmine's voice rose for the first time. Entitled? I worked 2 jobs to put myself through college. I waited tables and cleaned offices to pay for law school. I spent years in the trenches as a public defender before I ever thought about running for office. What exactly makes me entitled? Your attitude makes you entitled. Your assumption that you know better than everyone else makes you entitled. Your complete lack of respect for the people who paved the way for you makes you entitled. Sarah Haynes finally found her voice. Maybe we should take a commercial break. No, both women said simultaneously, their eyes still locked on each other. Jasmine leaned forward. Let me ask you something, Whoopi. When you first started in Hollywood, when you were fighting to be taken seriously, when you were breaking down barriers, did the established stars welcome you with open arms? Did they mentor you and lift you up? Or did they try to put you in your place and tell you to wait your turn? Whoopi's jaw clenched. That's completely different. How is it different? How is it different at all? You were young, you were black, you were a woman, and you refused to accept the limitations other people wanted to put on you. Sound familiar? It's different because I earned my place. I paid my dues. I didn't just show up expecting everything to be handed to me. And neither did I, Jasmine said firmly. But apparently, in your mind, the only way to earn respect is to do it exactly the way you did it. God forbid someone finds a different path or uses different tools to fight the same battles. Whoopi stood up abruptly, her chair rolling backward. I've heard enough of this nonsense. You want to sit there and compare yourself to me? You want to act like you're some kind of victim? Fine. But don't expect me to pretend like your tantrums are the same thing as real leadership. Jasmine stood up as well, her composure finally cracking. Tantrums? You've spent this entire interview attacking me personally, questioning my qualifications, talking down to me like I'm some child, and when I defend myself, that's a tantrum? You know what this really is, Whoopi? This is you being threatened by someone who refuses to ask for your permission to exist. 1. Threatened? By you? Whoopi's laugh was cruel. Sweetheart, you're not even a blip on my radar. You're a footnote, a flash in the pan. In 5 years, nobody will even remember your name. The cruelty of the words hit everyone in the studio. Sunny Hostin visibly winced. Alyssa Farah Griffin looked horrified. Even Joy Behar, who had seen plenty of heated exchanges over the years, looked shocked by the viciousness of the attack, but Jasmine didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled, a cold, knowing smile that made Whoopi take a step back. You know what, Whoopi? You're probably right. In 5 years, people might not remember my name, but they'll remember what I stood for. They'll remember that I never backed down from a fight that mattered. And they'll definitely remember this moment, when one of their heroes showed them exactly who she really is. She reached for her purse and stood up. I came here thinking I was going to have a conversation with a journalist. Instead, I got ambushed by someone who's forgotten what it means to fight for something bigger than herself. Where do you think you're going? Whoopi demanded. I'm leaving, because unlike some people, I know when a conversation has stopped being productive. Jasmine looked directly into the camera. To anyone watching this who believes in fighting for change, who believes in standing up for what's right even when it's uncomfortable, don't let anyone tell you to wait your turn. Don't let anyone convince you that your voice doesn't matter. And don't let anyone, no matter how famous or successful they are, make you feel small for daring to dream big. She turned back to Whoopi. Thank you for the lesson, Whoopi. You've taught me exactly the kind of person I never want to become. Security! Whoopi called out. Get her out of here! But Jasmine was already walking off the set, her head held high, leaving behind a stunned studio and a host who had just revealed more about herself than she ever intended to. The other co-hosts sat in shocked silence as the cameras continued to roll, capturing every moment of what would become one of the most talked-about interviews in television history. As the studio door closed behind her, Jasmine Crockett had unknowingly started a conversation that would echo far beyond the walls of The View. She had stood up to a bully, refused to be diminished, and shown millions of viewers what it looks like when someone refuses to stay in their assigned place. What do you think about media personalities using their platforms to tear down guests instead of having genuine conversations? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe for more stories about the moments that reveal who people really are when the cameras are rolling.